This is Dr. Beena Gandhi Deori, Deputy Director Research, SAARC Cultural Centre, Sri Lanka. For this month, we have with us Dr. Shrikant Ganvir, who will speak on sacred landscape of the Buddhist monastic sites of North-eastern Andhra Pradesh, India. Before we start with the lecture, I invite Director, SAARC Cultural Centre to give her welcome address. Over to you, Madam.
Good afternoon, Dr. Shrikant Ganvir, Assistant Professor, distinguished guests. It is with great pleasure and a profound sense of purpose that I extend a warm welcome to you to the second session of our monthly virtual talk series on cultural heritage and cultural diversity in the SAARC region. As the director of the SAARC Cultural Centre, I am deeply honored to have the opportunity to convene such a significant gathering dedicated to the exploration and celebration of our shared cultural heritage. Today's session holds particular significance as we delve into the captivating topic of the sacred landscape of the Buddhist monastic sites of North-eastern Andhra Pradesh, India, presented by the esteemed Dr. Shrikant Ganvir, Assistant Professor at the Department of AIHC and Archaeology, Deccan College, PRI, University of Pune, India. Dr. Ganvir's expertise and dedication to the preservation and study of cultural heritage are truly commendable, and we are privileged to have him share his invaluable insights with us. In a world where cultural diversity is both a source of richness and a bridge for understanding, events like these serve as beacons of enlightenment and unity. They remind us of the profound importance of cherishing and safeguarding our cultural legacies, fostering empathy, and promoting mutual respect among our diverse communities. I would like to extend my heartfelt gratitude to Dr. Ganvir for graciously accepting our invitation to enlighten us with his expertise. Your presence here today is a testament to our commitment to advance in the discourse on cultural heritage, and we are profoundly grateful for your contributions. To all our esteemed participants joining us from various corners of the SAARC region and beyond, I encourage you to actively engage in today's discussion. Your insights, questions, and reflections are important to the success of this talk series, and I am confident that your contributions will enrich our collective understanding of the cultural tapestry that binds us together. As we embark on this journey of exploration and discovery, let us reaffirm our shared commitment to preserving, celebrating, and promoting the rich cultural heritage and diversity that define our region. Together, let us embark on a voyage of cultural discovery that transcends borders and fosters a deeper sense of unity and understanding among us all. Once again, a heartfelt welcome to every one of you. Thank you for your presence, your enthusiasm, and your unwavering dedication to the cause of cultural preservation and understanding. Let us make this session a truly enriching and memorable experience for all. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam. A few announcements before we start the lecture. There will be a question and answer round at the end. Questions or comments can be addressed after the lecture. Now, moving on, the speaker of the second session of the SAARC Talk Series 2024 for February is Dr. Shrikant Ganvir. Dr. Shrikant Ganvir is an assistant professor in the Department of Ancient Indian History, Culture and Archaeology, Deccan College, Postgraduate and Research Institute, Pune, India. He co-directed Nagardhan and Hanigiri excavations. He participated in the Rajagala Archaeological Research Project Sri Lanka in 2018. He also served as an academic consultant to the Buddha Vanam project, Government of Telangana from 2018 to 2021. He is the course coordinator of the online course developed by the UGC on Buddhist tourism at the Swayam platform. He has published around 35 research papers in both national as well as international journals. His research areas include archaeology of Buddhism, rock cut architecture, Buddhist art and iconography, history of Buddhism in South Asia, early historic Deccan and religious paradigms of the Deccan. With this introduction, I invite Dr. Ganvir to start with his lecture. Over to you, sir.
So today I will be talking on the topic Sacred Landscape of the Buddhist Monastic Site of North-eastern Deccan region, which is basically northeastern part of Andhra Pradesh, India. So I will be talking how the landscape played a similar role in the making of these Buddhist monastic sites of Eastern Deccan sacred, and how we can see the continuity of religious practices in these sites. This lecture seeks to address few questions such as what was the nature of association between laity and monastic establishments in the region of northeastern Andhra Pradesh. Then what was the role of sites which are located in the vicinity of major monastic sites, to understand the interactions between the pre-Buddhist folk cults such as a worship of other goddesses, worship of Yaksha, worship of Naga, and Buddhist ritual practices at these monastic sites. These monastic sites also provide a vital evidence of the presence of numerous structural as well as rock cut stupas, some of which during their exploration preserve the relics of members of the Buddhist Sangha. So also to investigate the presence of Buddhist ritual practices and different cultic traditions. And one of such cult or the cultic practice has been identified or has been termed by Professor Gregory Chopin, one of the famous scholars of Buddhism or Buddhologist, as the cult of local monastic dead, and also to analyze the contextual role of monastic architecture in the making of sacred Buddhist landscape. This map will help you. This map actually shows the location of northeastern Andhra Pradesh, and you can see the few of the important Buddhist sites: Salihundam, Bavikonda, Thotlakonda, Bavikonda, Sankaram. Another important site located in the vicinity of Salihundam is a Kalingapattanam. So these are few important and representative Buddhist monastic sites of northeastern Andhra Pradesh. But beside this site, we can also see the numerous sites located in the vicinity of the coastal Andhra Pradesh. So the important points which I will be highlighting include the role of sacred landscape in the establishment of these Buddhist monasteries, how the Buddhist monasticism developed in this region, whether it was an outcome of the patronage given by the political powers or different dynasties which ruled over this region through the ages, or besides the significant role played by the political powers, what was the contribution of community or collective patronage? As we know, the collective patronage is a term developed by Professor Vidya Dehejia based on the wide participation of common people representing different social groups, classes, different occupational groups, artisanal groups, and their donation to the Buddhist Sangha or making of the Buddhist monasteries. Then do the archaeological investigations provide any evidence of the carrying out Buddhist rituals, Buddhist practices what was the nature of such rituals, whether one can mark the development of such a ritual practices in a given space and time or with reference to spatio-temporal context. As we know, the water and the presence of water bodies play a seminal role in the making of, in establishment of the religious settlements in South Asia. Looking at the major role played by the water bodies, how the presence of water bodies such as a rock-cut cistern, lakes, rivers helpful in establishment of Buddhist monastic sites in the region. If we look at the archaeological setting of some of the sites, especially the sites such as Salihundam, Sankaram, they provide art historical evidence of the presence and the continuity of other Indic religion even in the early medieval and late medieval period. So it helps us to understand multi-religious settings of these archaeological sites. As mentioned earlier, Professor Chopin coined very important term based on the practices of local monastic dead as a cult of local monastic dead. The so-called votive stupas, now identified as a memorial stupas, either preserving or preserved the relics or the sharir dhatu of the members of the Sangha, or symbolically established in the memory of the venerable members of the Sangha. One of the key sites which I will be talking is a Salihundam, which is located in a Srikakulam district of Andhra Pradesh on the bank of Vanshadhara river. The extensive excavation of this site was carried out by the Archaeological Survey of in the early 50s of the last century under the supervision of Dr. Subramaniam, and this site has been declared as a protected site of Archaeological Survey of India. This is a site plan of Salihundam which shows the different divisions of the areas. So the Salihundam 1 represents the monastic settlements. Salihundam 2 represents the remains of some of the monasteries and the pillar hall, basically the space for the halls. The upper part of Salihundam 1 and the Salihundam 3, the Chaitya Gharas, and one can see the different architectural patterns of the Chaitya Gharas, upside Chaitya Ghara or Chaitya Gruha, then circular Chaitya Gruha, as well as stupa. This is a general view of Salihundam, where one can see the site, location of the site, and how the site is situated on the hilltop. So the entire hill is located on, the entire site is located on the hilltop, and one can see the remains of the entrance and the pathway. And also what is interesting to see is that the massive brick walls which could be acted as a protective walls of the entire monastic settlement. So this is a very important or a unique feature of the site, which shows that how the site was being encircled or enclosed by such massive wall structures. So this region, which basically adjoining regions of the Salihundam 2 and 3, shows us the circular stupa shrine, then circular stupa, as well as the structural stupas, and also the shrine. Although it seemed that probably the object of veneration in such shrines could be the either small stupa, structural stupa, or Buddha image, mostly stucco image, as we have such evidence from one of the upsidal Chaitya Gruhas from Salihundam. So one can also see that how the different zones of residential places as well as the zones for the carrying out worships or the rituals or the ritualistic practices were basically separated by a specific, you can say, the borders or the walls, which probably suggest maybe the activities of their construction could be carried out in different time period. Also the notion of the sacredness, that how the sacred spaces of the carrying out the ritualistic practices were being separated by the residential places. This is a general view showing the stupa and Chaitya Gruha. The stupa is a typical architectural model of Andhra Pradesh or South India, where one can see the wheel-shaped stupa having the spokes. But interesting is to see that the 4 projected platforms, which are known as Ayaka platforms, are absent in the stupa at Salihundam, which further attests that probably this could be placed, or this could have been placed among the early such stupas, where the process of developing a model of a South Indian stupa or the wheel-shaped stupa was being carried out. In the vicinity of the main stupa, one can see the circular as well as square structures, which are structural stupas. It seems that such structural stupas were constructed in the memory of the venerable members of the Sangha, as the theory or based on the archaeological evidence, epigraphic evidence, which further made Professor Gregory Chopin to put forward a theory of the presence of the cult of local monastic deity, which also shows that how the local members of the Buddhist Sangha were worshipped or venerated by the local Buddhist communities. The circular Chaitya Gruha is another important architecture model which was favored by the Sthapatis or architects of the Eastern India, Eastern Deccan or Deccan region. Although later on we find that such circular Chaitya Gruhas were not become so popular, maybe due to the issue related to the space for the holding the religious assembly, for giving the sermon or Dhammadesna by the venerable members of the Sangha. What is interesting to see in such circular stupas, that probably it shows the usage of the different types of the molded bricks, further suggesting that the construction of such peculiar architectural models must have had certain blueprints of the construction. Otherwise, it could not possible to have basically the different types or the different varieties of the molded buildings. Unfortunately, such studies has not been carried out on a large scale, but the studies of the bricks found in the Moghalmari excavation carried out by Dr. Rajas Sanyal, or the another Buddhist site in Karnataka, Rajghatta, whose study has been carried out by Dr. Krishnamurthy, suggests that the brick industry was very well developed, showing the micro expertise. The presence of the Chandrashila in early structure suggests that how the concept of the half moon stone got associated with the Buddhist religious structures from the early centuries of the Common Era. This plan suggests how the residential area, where we have the pillar hall as well as the remains of the monasteries, was separated by the ritualistic space. And these are the remains of the cells, that is, which are called as Bhikkhu Gruhas. And in the epigraphic corpus of Western Buddhist caves, we have the words such as Gabha or Overaka for the such cells. The remains of pillars, which were once upon time very much part of the pillar hall, can be seen in this picture. The important area which developed in the mid phase of the site, that is from the 3rd, 4th centuries of the Common Era, include the apsidal structures. These apsidal structures again are very well constructed, and if you look at the spaces of both apsidal structures, one can see that how the walls, massive walls or massive structures were constructed to encircle or enclose these Chaitya Gruhas. In the Chaitya Gruha, which is on the right hand, enshrined a stupa which symbolizes the Mahaparinirvana of the Buddha as well as the Buddha as a religious teacher, whereas the Chaitya Gruha on the left side enshrined stucco image of the Buddha, whose remains can be seen now. The remains of the apsidal Chaitya Gruha, where one can see the space for the holding religious assembly, for giving the sermon to the laity, or visitors or pilgrims can be seen. This could be one of the reasons for getting popular the upside-down Chaitya-Gruhas in comparison with the circular Chaitya-Gruhas. This is a Chaitya-Gruha which could be also identified as a Pratimaghara or Pratimagruha, as one can see the remains of the Buddha image which was originally fashioned in the stucco, in the lime, that is by the stucco method or the of stucco. It shows that how the stucco art was developed in the region of northeastern Andhra Pradesh from the 3rd, 4th century CE, and gradually the sites like Nagarjunakonda, Phanigiri provide fascinating examples of the further developed stages of the stucco art. Unfortunately, the stucco art of the Deccan has not been drawn or has not been able to draw the wider attention of the scholars, likewise the region of Gandhar. On the top, one can see the large circular Chaitya-Gruha along with a stupa. The architectural pattern of this Chaitya-Gruha suggests probably this Chaitya-Gruha and the stupa which was originally constructed or enshrined this religious structure could have been preserved the relics of important personality or figure in the Buddhist Sangha during that time. Unfortunately, the remains of the stupa, brick stupa or the structural stupa could not be preserved. But looking at the massiveness, the pattern and the style of the construction, its architectural feature strongly suggests it's an important place in the Salihundam Buddhist site or in the plan of Salihundam monastic site. One can see the stupa and only the base of the stupa has been preserved. On the back wall of the Chaitya-Gruha, one can see the circular stupa, again an unusual architectural model of such stupas in the region of the Deccan. As we know from the 1st, 2nd centuries before Common Era, how the wheel-shaped stupas became popular in this region. But there are few exceptional examples where one can see or one can mark the transition phase of carrying out different architectural experiments in the Buddhist monastic architecture or the architecture of the Buddhist religious structures such as the stupa. Salihundam provides interesting examples of carrying out different experiments in the religious settings. Another important site which is very much part of the northeastern Andhra Pradesh is a Sankaram. This important site is located near Ankapalli in Visakhapatnam district. The site consists of twin hills locally known as Bojjankonda and Lingalakonda. The site excavated in the first decade of the 20th century, which unearthed numerous architectural remains including structural viharas, stupas, Chaitya-Gruhas. Besides the architecture remains, the site also consists of rock-cut caves, series of numerous rock-cut monolithic stupas. The site also provides an important evidence of the continuity of the religious practices by the followers of Nath sect. In this way, the site provides an important evidence of its continuity till the 1415 or 15th-16th century of the Common Era. This general view provides how the landscape played a vital role in making these religious sites as the sacred centers. The presence of numerous rock-cut caves, the numerous monolithic stupas, rock-cut stupas as well as structural stupas, then few rock-cut caves and remains of other architectural structures further suggests that how the activity of either excavating the monolithic stupas or the constructing the structural monuments was being carried out on such a grand scale on this site. The presence of the water bodies in the presence, in the vicinity, in the form of the legs can also be seen. Besides that, one can also see the presence of dense forest in the site. As we know, the Buddhist monks, since the time of the Buddha, were also favored to stay in the forest. For such group of Buddhist monks, which generally favored to or preferred to stay in the forest, were called as a Aranyavasi, and in the some of the inscriptions we get the word or the term such as Aranyaka. The best example in this case or in this regard can be given the inscription of cave number 2 at Bedsa, which mentions the Venerable Gobhuti, a monk who was staying in the forest, mentioned as Aranyak, and who was following the one of the dhutangas of the collecting food in a begging bowl, that is a Pindapata or Pindapati. Although the site consists of few caves, 7 in numbers, but these caves are also known for their architectural marvels as well as the sculptural wealth. The facade of cave number 1 attracts to our attention, where graceful images of the Buddha accompanied by the Bodhisattvas and also the Maladharis or the Vidyadhars can be seen. This cave number 1 at Sankaram shows that how the transition can be marked from the stupa as an object of veneration to the Buddha image or the personification of the Buddha in the form of the icons. It seems that probably Sankaram played a very important role in also showing its influence on the lands of central India as well as the Vidarbha, especially the caves at Vijasan near Bhadravati in Chandrapur district of Vidarbha also shows such phenomena, where on the facade we have the representation of the stupas, whereas in the shrine we have the Buddha image. Contrary to the Bhadravati example or Vijasan examples, the Sankaram caves provide the presence of the Buddha image either on the facade or on the front halls or front mandapas, whereas the object of veneration in many of the rock-cut caves at Sankaram is a stupa. The details of the facade, where one can see the life-size Dwarapalas, which could be the most probably the Bodhisattvas. One can see the Buddha image flanked by the Bodhisattva, as well as the stupas can be seen in a half relief. This is one of the good examples to see the inter-regional interactions. And if you look at the Buddhist caves at Bagh, where we have also the such rock-cut monolithic stupas, along with the presence of Buddha image in some of the caves, the cave number 1 Sankaram provides the center space allocated to the monolithic stupa. Looking at its architectural features, this stupa is different from the rock-cut stupas of Western Deccan, that is the region of Maharashtra. But here we find the stupa is placed on a squarish high squarish platform, which is unusual in a rock-cut architecture. Although there is no any evidence as such contextual, but probably there is a scope to carry out further investigation, as probably such practice in architectural idioms can be seen in a Gandhara region. Professor Pia Brancocchio has carried out such a in-depth study of Ajanta paintings and the visuals of Ajanta, and has shown the long distance association between the land of Western Deccan, that is Ajanta, Buddhist caves, and some of the Gandharan Buddhist sites. The Sankaram is known as for the series of numerous monolithic stupas. The close study and of these stupas suggests that these stupas were not only all of these stupas cannot be called as a votive stupas as such. The close scrutiny or the examination of some of these stupas suggests that some of the stupas have had either loose rock cut or loose wooden hermicas, and probably one can see the spaces for the enshrining the relics. As we know, such arrangement was very much existed in some of the memorial stupas of the Western Deccan. The stupa gallery, that is a cave number 3 at Thanale, cave number 20 at Bhaja, cave number 11 at Pitarkhora. These are few important Buddhist caves which are memorial stupa galleries, have provided important evidence of the presence of the sockets either on their adhisthana or under to provide or to preserve the relics or the physical remains of the members of the Buddhist Sangha. Taking this as an important evidence, one can also make primary observation that probably looking at the sockets, mostly on the hermicas, below the hermicas or the adhisthana, on the under of the some of the stupas, make us to think that probably some of the stupas originally could have consisted the relics or sharir dhatu of the members of the Sangha. One can see basically how there is a space, because in some of the Buddhist caves, probably the scholars believe that probably this was a space where the relics could have been preserved. One can see the presence of the structural monolithic stupas, and the structural stupas are generally constructed around the main stupa. So this is a main stupa at Sankaram, which also provide how the natural landscape was very much used in the making of the religious structure, where we have the partially rock cut and partially structural stupa can be seen, which is again a rare example in the stupa architecture of the Andhra Pradesh in general and of South India. The remains of the structural monasteries around the Chaitya Gruha can be seen. Later on, we can also see how the Buddha images were carved out in a different spaces, which also attests the popularity of Buddha image worship during the 5th, 6th century at the site, because we saw that probably some of them were seen or carved out on such places where actually the rituals or the worship seems to be difficult, but it seemed that probably it was a time period when the Buddha image became the most popular form of carrying out the worships. This is one of the late images of Hariti found from the Deccan region, can be dated to the 5th, 6th centuries or even later, that is the 6th, 7th centuries of Common Era. The cult of Hariti was popular in the Gandharan region as well as in the Mathura region since the time of the Kushanas, as known from the numerous votive images as well as large images. Although the popularity of Hariti worship in the region of Deccan was not attained at the level which it got or which it attained in the Gandharan region or the northwestern frontier, but the presence of Hariti images in some of the Buddhist caves such as Ajanta cave number 2, Aurangabad cave number 7, Ellora cave number 9, and the presence of Hariti sculptures from Nagarjunakonda and other sites of Deccan further attest that the worship of Hariti also became one of the important aspects of the Buddhist ritual practices of the region. It seemed that this site lost its significance as an important Buddhist center after 11th-12th century CE. The facade of cave number 5 portrays an image of Ganpati, mostly associated with the tantric rituals, whereas inside of the or inner section of the same cave displays the two images of Nath saints, Matsyendranath and Gorakshanath, and their presence in cave number 5, one of the caves of Sankaram rock cut complex, suggests that how the continuity of the religious rituals was going on even after the 11th-12th century. This is a very interesting example to see the continuity of the sacred spaces in the landscape of religious monuments after the changing nature from the one religious tradition to another. The Mahastupa at Kalingapattanam, although a less known site, is located near the seashore. The site is located in the vicinity of Salihundam and could be considered as one of the satellite sites of Salihundam, but the archaeological excavation of this site suggests the site established not later than 2nd century before Common Era. So, probably how the strategic location of this site further suggests that how the coastal regions, the beds, the regions associated with the river bodies, the hilltops or the hills were strategically selected by the contemporary Buddhist Sangha and the authorities, political authorities, to develop Buddhist religious centers. Although we do not have any substantial evidence to associate the association of the site like Kalingapattanam with that of the Mauryan king or Mauryan emperor Ashoka, but it seemed that probably the structure could have been established during the late phase of the King Ashoka or the Mauryan phase. This Mahastupa is one of the earliest such massive structures which emerged in the region of northeastern Andhra Pradesh and further opens a new chapter to carrying out probably how the ports, urban centers, important towns were considered as important spaces for the propagation of Buddhism by the support agencies, by the patrons, with the active participation and the advice of Buddhist Sangha. Further, the Mahastupa of Kalingapattanam could have been influenced such a large structures which can be seen at Nagarjunakonda, and further the culmination of such multiple tiered stupas can be seen at Nelakondapalli in Telangana. So in that case, this Mahastupa, which generally known in the epigraphic record as a Mahachetyas, as we have such examples known from Nagarjunakonda inscription as well as Kanaganhalli inscription, although Mahastupa is a general term used in academic writings by the scholars. So in that context, the Kalingapattanam Mahastupa has a special place in understanding the development of large religious structures in the form of the stupas. The Buddhist sites at Salihundam, Sankaram and Kalingapattanam, located in the northeastern region of the Deccan or northeastern Andhra Pradesh, have special significance in the history of Buddhist monastic architecture. These sites, being early Buddhist monastic sites of the Deccan in general and of coastal Andhra Pradesh in particular, provides an important evidence to understand that different phases of architecture development, transformation of one model to another architectural models, the transition phase in the terms of the ritualistic practices from the stupa worship to the Buddha image worship, or the transition or the transformation from the Buddhist sites to the sites which later on associated with the Nath sect or the Tantric worships, are very important to understand how the continuity of the sacred spaces was going through the ages. The archaeological evidence in the form of the art historical remains, epigraphic records, ceilings, sculptures provide vital information to place these sites in a wider chronological framework. In general, these sites can be placed from the 2nd, 3rd century before Common Era and continued till the 10th, 11th century. In the case of Sankaram, it seemed that Sankaram even continued after 11th, 12th century and got associated with the worship or the religious practices associated with the Nath sect. The Kalingapattanam seems to be prospered till the 4th-5th centuries of Common Era. These sites also provide how the spaces for the residential purpose as well as for the religious purpose were very well demarcated by the gaps, by the change in architectural pattern, by enclosing massive walls. So the sacredness of the space was one of the important aspects of understanding the Buddhist monastic practices of South Asia in general and of the Deccan in particular. As these sites have preserved the archaeological remains of different time period and in different stratas, so their general study will not yield a kind of important observation. So their study in a spatio-temporal context is very much required. Probably it will further help to understand how the Buddhist rituals were being practiced out, how the functionality of the spaces can be viewed, and how the functionality of the spaces according to the time, according to the patronage, according to the change in the requirement of the contemporary society was further transformed or change its original nature. The continuity of the worship, as mentioned earlier, is one of the important aspects of some of the important Buddhist sites of the Deccan, especially of the region of North-eastern Andhra Pradesh. The example of Sankaram can be cited as one of the best examples in this regard. The ritualistic practices and the cult of local monastic dead is also very important aspect of the sacred landscape of the Buddhist monasteries at Sankaram, Salihundam, as Professor Gregory Chopin carried out in-depth study of the cult of local monastic dead of a pan-South Asian regions, focusing the archaeological remains from the ancient India, helps us to understand how the members of the Buddhist Sangha or the monastic establishment were so well connected with the laity, their feelings, their faith, and further their contribution in the propagation of Buddhism was preserved or was memorized in such monuments. So these memorial stupas are not just structures, but they are basically the living memories of those unknown known Buddhist monks and the members of the Sangha, Buddhist nuns in some cases, who played a seminal role in the propagation of Buddha's teaching across the South Asia. In this case, one has to understand how landscape played a very important role in the making of these Buddhist sites or these religious sites as a sacred centers. The numerous ceilings, numerous artifacts which are not discussed in the present lecture due to time constraint bear a testimony how the laity pilgrims were so connected with these Buddhist centers, and from the 4th-5th century CE onwards, these religious centers were not merely acted as a center of propagation of Dhamma, but also evolved as a sacred Buddhist centers. I am thankful to Deccan College, Archaeological Survey of India, Department of Archaeology and Museums, Government of Andhra Pradesh, also Department of Pali and Buddhist Studies, Savitribai Phule, Pune University, Ocean Bum, and all my students. And I especially express my sincere thanks to the SAARC Cultural Centre for giving such an important opportunity to have a virtual journey of the important Buddhist monastic sites of North-eastern Andhra Pradesh. Due to some technical reasons and the connectivity, there were some issues. I apologize for the same. Thank you for all the participants for hearing me carefully, listening me carefully and patiently. Once again, express sincere gratitude to Director Madam and Deputy Director Madam of the SAARC Cultural Centre. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Shrikant Ganvir. Thank you very much for such an illuminating and very informative lecture. Now I invite our participants for their comments and questions, if there is any. questions or comments from the? Yes, we have two participants, Amar Dhanle and Harika Jamala Mandika, who have raised their hands. So please proceed with your questions or comments.
Sir, like in the sculptures, is there like the influence of Amravati School of Art, because they are, I mean, Amravati School of Art is comparatively near and have the influence of Gandhara and Mathura School of Art?
Yes, thank you for a very important question. Yes, we know the basically we do not find the such the medallions, which we generally found from the excavations or archaeological investigations of different Buddhist sites. For example, Thotlakonda, then Amravati, Phanigiri. So the sites which were under discussion probably do not provide such clue. But as you are rightly said that when we talk about the influence, the Buddha image and the sculpture art of Andhra Pradesh, so on early Buddha images of different sites, not only in the hinterland of Amravati, but also the sites which are quite far away from Amravati, positively displays the influence of Amravati. So the Amravati School of Art is a very important, you can say, the school of art, not for only the Andhra Pradesh, but when we look at the Buddhist art of Deccan. Also the Amravati art has its influence on Ajanta painting, that has been studied by Dr. Shrikant Pradhan, an art historian from Deccan College. So Amravati, School of Amravati, have had its influence. The zone of influence is basically the entire Deccan and also the adjoining regions of the Deccan. Yes. But as we know that many of the images are not in good state of preservation. They were later on, you can say, the conserved. So probably we lost, you can say, the early, actually the art historical features, Yeah. So although you see them in a very good condition, but most of them were restored as they found in different states of the preservation.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, sir, thank you very much for your response. Are there any more questions or any comments? Sagnik Shaha, please proceed with your question.
Hello, sir. Excellent lecture as always. I was just wondering about a very, very sub-theme of your lecture actually, which is the Harithi. You have mentioned the presence of the Harithi, and it reminded me in Karnataka the Kadambas used to call them Harithi Putras. And I was wondering that if those landscapes, which is partly in the coast, and the Karnataka is not, the Kadambas were not in the coastal area, but how far the political patronage and the connections between the, political landscape and Buddhist landscapes are interconnected, if you can shed some light on that too, based on this, local cults that are getting appropriated as the royal emblem or royal symbol. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Sagnik, for this very interesting question. So, as you rightly said, the Kadambas and also later on the many political dynasties, also made their association with the Harithi. So that is very interesting. You can say the phenomenon, which we see in the Deccan region. And it seemed that, if as from the Kanakanahalli and the Sannati, especially from the Sannati, we have few specimens unearthed from the archaeological excavations carried out at Sannati and Kanakanahalli. And those are the early sculptures of Harithi dated to the 2nd, 3rd centuries of Common Era. So it provides a very interesting example or interesting evidence that yes, the Harithi was being worshipped as a, you can say, the goddess related to the fertility, mostly and the protector of the child and childbirth. Also coming to the domain of the Ikshwakus, if we see that we have also the early iconic representations of the Harithis, Harithi and the forms of the one of the important mother goddess or the mother figure in Buddhism in the regions of the Harithi and also some of the other sites. So from the from the 2nd, 3rd century CE onwards, the worship of the Harithi are preserved. Later on, we find that how the basically these Harithi were being, you can say, the worship under the different names, yeah. So Dr. Sri Padma has drawn our attention that although how these images were being identified on the different names, but the important principle, which lies in entire, you can say, through the ages, is that these figures, mother goddesses, the figures of the mother goddesses evolve as a basically the protector. Maybe their names got changed, transformed, and how the Harithi, because as we know that the cult of Harithi was dominant, or the prevalent, very much prevalent in the, as I mentioned, in Gandhara region. Then also the Mathura region. So the northwestern frontier and the Mathura region seems to be the two important zones or the pockets which provide evidence for its prevalence. Coming to the central India, we have very few less examples. Also in especially Odisha, the few representative examples were unearthed from the Ratnagiri, Lalitgiri. And coming to the basically Deccan region, it seems that the practice of worshipping, especially the Western Deccan, started later on. But Eastern Deccan, it was not the picture. So what you have mentioned, that from the early Kadambas, later on Badami Chalukyas, so their association with the Harithi shows a very interesting, you can say, the evidence, and which further, you can say, also requires, to study. As I mentioned, that there are many practices, related to the folk worship, the mother goddesses, the further, you can say, the worship of the Yakshas, Nagas, and their association with the early, you can say, the major Indic religions such as the Jainism, Buddhism, and also the ancient Hindu religion needs to be, you can say, the study, and also probably the folklores and the many, you can say, the myths, legends which are preserved in basically the local language, the literature of the local language also need to be studied. Probably many times this very important evidence, or the thread, which due to our, you can say, the some limitations of studying those texts in a different languages, probably we miss. But I think that how these these deities are known as the Palakamma or the Amma, and they are being worshipped, by different names. So, and also suggesting that the nature of their the nature of protection of the child and the childbirth, and as a you can say, the nature of as a mother goddess, or as a mother figure, remains the same. So that is a very important, I personally feel. Thank you very much for this question. And this, as I told, that as we know that how the matriarchy, or the even many of these political figures, or the important kings, they used to bear the basically the names of their mothers, or the matronyms. So all these need to be studied in a the wider, you can say, socio-economic and political canvas. I think, yeah.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you. Thank you.
Is any more questions or comments? I once again thank Shrikant sir. There is Madhulika Chaudhary. Okay, please go ahead with
Yes, ma'am. Ma'am, sir, I just want to ask, is stupa have any kind of symbolic relation in by which Buddhists want to establish their superiority from Brahmins?
It is not basically the question of, you can say, the superiority over, you can say, the over one religion, or over some, you can say, the existing religions. It is basically, it has you can say, if you take the example or the evidence from the Mahaparinibbana Sutta, which is a part of the Ganikaya, where we have textual evidence of basically how the stupa evolved as a kind of a memorial of basically the constructed over the relics of the Buddha and also the Buddhist teachers. Because also we have the examples from the Pali text, and also the basically the Vinayas of a different, you can say, the sects. For example, Mula Sarvastivadin in Mahasangikas, and they also provide similar information that during the time of the Buddha, even before the demise of the Buddha, the Buddhist stupas or the stupas were started being constructed over both, over the physical remains or the relics of the monks as well as the nuns. So it seems to be the kind of a memorial which basically represent or symbolizes respect or in a society. Because if you see that the Mahaparinibbana Sutta further provides that who were entitled, and among them the Chakravarti Raja, the kind of the monarch or the universal monarchs or the emperors were also entitled. So in that case, it has also the significance in the terms of the politico-cultural, you can say, the settings. So it was not only confined to the religio-cultural setting, but a wider significance, and that is why in Buddha told, or in the dialogue between the Buddha and his disciple Bhikkhu Ananda, we have that who were entitled, and while enlisting the basically the group of peoples who were entitled, Buddha says that the Tathagat, or then Buddha, then Tathagata Shravaka, and then also comes as a Chakravarti Raja or Chakravarti. So it seemed that probably those who attained, you can say, the not the Nibbana, and also the basically those who attain a kind of the important position in a contemporary society, in maybe in the terms of the religio-cultural settings as well as in a political settings, were entitled. So probably, and when we have the Chatravali, as we know, the Chatra or the parasol symbolizes the royalty. So in that case, the stupa also signifies the royalty, or the notion of the royalty. In that case, it is a superior. But I don't think as your inquiry related to that, probably the construction of the stupa as a religious monument or a religious structure, probably to denote the superiority over particular region or the religion or the sect. I don't think that. Probably we don't have such evidence, because it became a kind of the practice of venerating the teachers who attain, who basically contributed their lives for the well-being of the society, or who attain basically the Nibbana. So obviously those who basically sacrifice their life for the well-being of the society. So it is basically the memorials to pay the gratitude, the monuments through which one can pay their homage, respect to the departed one who contributed for the well-being of the society and propagated the Buddha's teaching or Dhamma.
Thank you, sir.
So thank you very much for your response. In your presentation, you have actually touched upon many important sub-themes, citing examples from Salihundam, Sankaram. These are very, very important sites, and you have rightly addressed, you have highlighted the importance of landscape in the development of important Buddhist monastic sites. And through your presentation, you have also addressed the question of the nature of associationship between laity and the monastic establishment in this region, mostly this northeastern part of Andhra region. And then you have also spoke about the network of sites or centers which are supporting these monastic sites. You have also addressed the emergence of the satellite sites in the vicinity of these major monastic sites. So this was a very, very important lecture. So I once again thank you to our speaker. Sir, thank you very much for your, I know you have a very busy schedule from your, taking classes and all, but still you gave us this time to speak on such an important topic. And I also thank our participants for being with us to make this exercise a fruitful one. There is a small announcement for the next month. Our speaker is from Bhutan. He's going to speak on a very important topic regarding Bhutan. He's Mr. Samten Yeshi. The details of the talk will be posted in our SAARC website as well as our Facebook page. Therefore, I request participants to subscribe to our Facebook so that they can get all the information about our upcoming events. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
So we'll meet again very soon.